Hey, this is Sanyam Bhutani, and you're listening to Chai Time Data Science, a podcast for data science enthusiasts where I interview practitioners, researchers, and Kagglers about their journey, experience, and talk all things about data science. Hello and welcome to Quarantine Chai with Kaggle Heroes. With this new look, I'm interviewing the new 4x Kaggle Grandmaster, Chris Deotte. Chris has an amazing, very diverse and very rich background. And we connect the dots of his journey, his professional journey with data science. We talk about his previous life, how did he transition into data science on Kaggle, and his journey on Kaggle. Chris, at the time of recording, has just become a 4x Kaggle Grandmaster. He's ranked 32 on the competitions tier, 2 on the datasets tier, and is currently number 1 in kernels and discussions. We discuss about his secrets to success on Kaggle, his, I think, enthusiasm and his love for the process, his love for Kaggle really comes across in this interview. So this interview is really a complete overview of Chris's journey on and off Kaggle, his overview of Kaggle, and there are many golden advices as you might expect. We discuss all about competitions, kernels, discussions. So without further ado, here's the conversation. Please enjoy the show. I am on the call with the new 4x Kaggle Grandmaster, Chris Deotte, who's just about to reveal the secret that 4x Grandmasters and I think Grandmasters have. Can you tell us a bit more about that, Chris, now that you remember of it?
The secret. I feel on the spot like I need to have some magic recipe. No secret, really. I mean, I think that I got to become quadruple grandmaster just because I'm really enthusiastic, and I'm really excited to just participate. And I have been spending a lot of time and participating in the last 2 years.
Did you get your invite to the fight clubs yet, or can you share a bit about those?
No, I haven't gotten this invitation yet.
Okay. I'll keep digging. Hopefully, some Kaggler will spill the details someday.
But, I can give a few tips. So I mean, I was thinking about this ahead of time because I thought you might ask this question. I mean, a few tips. People are always saying, what can I do to kind of get, to get more medals or reach, master or grandmaster. And I guess some things are kind of common knowledge. But I guess two things maybe that I think some people overlook is one. I think when you make a discussion post or a notebook, you should monitor it, and you have to stay with it. So if people ask questions, you should answer the questions. And if all of a sudden you might learn something new, you could update your post or you could put it as a comment. And what people might not realize is when you have discussions, like when people have comments and you reply or on a notebook, every time there's a new comment, it goes to the top of the list in Kaggle search engine. So it's not just so in a sense, by you putting in the extra time, it'll also get more votes to the original post because it keeps it prominent. So that's kind of something maybe people don't realize. So I mentioned that.
Okay, we'll come back to that topic. I was sort of going on a joke about the movie Fight Club that I always try to bring back to these interviews. But going back to your journey, you've had a diverse background even before starting on Kaggle. I think you have it shared on your Kaggle profile. Can you share the timeline about that? You worked in art, design, and even teaching. How did that timeline look like before you joined the Kaggle world?
Okay, yeah, I have worked a great variety of jobs. So I guess throughout high school and college, I had a disc jockey business where I would provide music me and a friend would provide music at parties.
Okay.
Then I graduated with a bachelor's degree in mathematics, and then immediately afterwards, I started a business producing a visitor's guide to my local city. So I would go around with my camera and I would take pictures of restaurants and different things, and I'd put a whole book together. I'd lay out pages with maps and information. So that was very successful, and that was sort of my main source of income for actually about 10 years. And then it didn't take all my time, so I actually started getting into real estate. I bought up some old houses. I renovated the houses. I flipped some, and then I kept some and rented it. So, you know, right after college, I was just, you know, making this visitor's guide, building houses. And then actually, but I always liked school and stuff. So then I was invited to teach high school. I taught high school for 2 years, and I really liked teaching. So I wanted to get into being a college professor. That's where I went back, got my PhD. And I got my PhD in computational science. And, you know, during that time, when I really kind of perfected my mathematical skills, I actually started doing some consulting jobs where I would just do basic data analytics or statistics. I was doing that at that time. And then once I got my PhD, I was doing research work in simulations. So I would essentially, it's like prediction. I can maybe predict, you know, if a car got in a crash, you can solve the differential equations and predict what the car looks like. So computational science is very close to, you know, machine learning and deep learning. And then it was sort of a natural transition. You know, 5 years back, the subject became very popular. Schools started opening departments, at which point I switched all my research full-time to machine learning data science. That's all I read, all I studied. And I've been doing that ever since. And I'm really excited because I feel that it gets to utilize all my previous skills. You know, I was a graphic artist, and there's a lot of visualization in data science. And, you know, I always programmed as a hobbyist, and there's a lot of programming, and I have a mathematical background, a lot of mathematics. As a teacher, I communicate, you know, machine learning is about explainability and communication. So I really feel that I'm in a place now where it's actually utilized and brought all my diverse background together.
We've at least if I can speak for the community, even though I'm not very active, we've definitely enjoyed your visualizations, your discussions, even the nuggets that you share on the forums. When did Kaggle come into the picture? When did you find your addiction for Kaggle? I know your first competition had an illusion of a gold medal for you, where you had an interesting shakeup.
Yeah. Wow, that was really rough. That was so. Yeah, it is interesting how you know, I was trying to think this morning, you know, how I heard about Kaggle, and I kind of don't remember. I do know that I started 2 years ago. So as I said, you know, I had made a switch in my research. I was doing a postdoc at the university, and then once I was done working on that stuff, I immediately got a whole bunch of books, and I started studying data science. So for the first few months, I wasn't on Kaggle. I was just reading books, and I was just programming at my computer, you know, just on my own, making little programs. And a friend must have told me about Kaggle, or I must have started an advertisement, and, you know, hey, there's this online community. So I just went on one day, and yeah, I started just discussing in the forums, and I said, wow, this is the stuff I've been working on. I love to talk about this. And I got involved in the playground competitions, the Titanic and the MNIST, and it was really fun. I liked the sort of gamification, you know, you build a model, and is your model more accurate than the other guy's model? So addiction, you said that word. That's definitely the word. I got sucked right in. I mean, after a few days on Kaggle, I was like, oh my God, you know, people to talk data science with, and you know, they've turned it into a game of building models. So I was hooked. So I've been, you know, heavily active for the past two years.
Just to share your stats with the audience, you're 32. You ranked at the number 32 in competitions, second in data sets, and you're the king of kernels and discussions right now. How do you decide to invest your time across these four, or is it like a natural flow to you?
It's somewhat natural. However, I did make a conscious decision this year to focus more on competitions. There's a little bit what's the word? They're a little bit at odds. You know, if you share too much, if you're in a competition and you're publishing too many notebooks or sharing too many, you know, informative discussions, then it actually makes it harder for you to do well in the competition by dropping so much knowledge. So I think in my first year, I was focusing more on notebooks and discussions, and I obtained the Grandmaster in notebooks and discussion in the first year. And now, you know, this is starting my second year, and I think I still share, but it's a little bit less sort of here are the secrets, and it's a little more here's how to do something. Anyway, I've been focusing more on just competitions, and it was this year, just recently, that I got all the extra golds, and I just achieved, competition grandmaster and the new dataset grandmaster.
How did you go from just starting your journey to today being the 4x grandmaster? Many people, I think, struggle with this. They may be too scared to jump on Kaggle. How would you advise? What should they read? What should they learn? Because people think there's a prerequisite before jumping onto Kaggle that you need to complete. Do you think there's such a list?
So there's definitely no prerequisite, and I definitely empathize with everybody, because that's how I felt when I first joined my first few days, and I was having discussions. I was a little intimidated to ask a question to a grandmaster or even reply to a grandmaster. I was totally there, so I know how it feels. And actually, and then also, so you shouldn't necessarily just have your sights maybe on grandmaster. I was really proud of the other tiers. I know when I first became a discussion expert in discussions and notebooks, I started putting that on all my resumes. I had there was a website where I had my little bio, and actually I put a line. I said, I'm a Kaggle discussion expert, and I'm a notebook expert. And actually that website still says that. I haven't updated it, but I was very, I was very proud of being an expert. So, I mean, start slow, just get on there. Don't be intimidated. I guess my point is that everybody starts where you started, and so did I. And, just one post at a time, one discussion at a time, one medal at a time. And over time, you'll get closer and closer. You'll increase in the tiers.
Was there a conscious factor for you to improve every day, or were, as you said, you got sucked into Kaggle, you were really addicted to it? Was it part of the enjoyment process, just getting involved? Or were you making a conscious effort to, maybe list down points where you need to improve?
Yeah, so for me, the main attraction to Kaggle was improvement. You see my varied background. Part of the reason I've done a variety of things is I love to learn new things. So, if I had a magic secret which could just win every comp, and I just do the same thing over and over, I wouldn't do it. It's boring. So if you look at my track record, each comp I enter or each new discussion post, it's something new. And if I looked at a list of my competitions, every competition I learn a new technique. Recently I was in Ion competition. It's my first time working with sound. I had never worked with WaveNet before, and these techniques and a lot of signal processing. So that's, for me, the excitement. There's something new. And even if a competition or something looks similar to a previous one, I say to myself, what new angle can I do here? What new thing can I learn? And so for me, it's always a quest to learn. And then I'm excited to learn. And then I naturally will share and make posts while I'm learning. It kind of goes hand in hand with me.
Absolutely. So the competitions that you choose to take part in, are those like completely driven by your interest, or do you have any strategy of choosing which competition you like to take part in?
Pretty much just driven by my interest. There's some other motivating factors. I mean, earlier in the year, when I was striving to get the competition grandmaster, I was maybe kind of entering, sort of everything. But generally speaking, I pick and choose the ones that interest me. I might read a few discussions and notebooks. I'll look at the data, and I'll see if there's something particularly interesting.
Any favorite battle stories? I like to call it battle stories because it's really a fight that goes on the leaderboard. People outside of Kaggle don't realize it. Any favorite battle stories that you might remember?
Oh man, I got hundreds of battle stories, but you are right. For me, it's very emotional. I mean, you're right. It's sort of a battle, and it's super exciting. And what makes it exciting is this leaderboard. For a month, you're in a constant competition with people around the world, and then particularly in that last week, you're working like crazy. So it's super intense. For stories, I have both positive and negative, and I'm going to share a positive, but I'll at least point out the difference. So the negative stories are the shakeups. There's definitely these competitions where you're doing well on one leaderboard, you drop. Those are always rough on everybody. But instead of that, I'm going to share, a positive story. I think the most excitement for me is when you make the breakthrough. So there's many competitions, and you see the leaderboard, and there's a bunch of scores, and there's, the top 50, they have a little bit of a jump. And people in the forum say, magic, what's the magic? Magic. And everybody's magic this, magic that. Of course, it's not magic, it's data scientists. But usually there's one data property. So for me, that's the excitement. I mean, early on, what was it? It was the Santander customer transaction competition. And there was this feature. It was a data property. You had to look at the count. And, I was down here, and then one day I discovered the count. I add it to my model. My CV jumps really big. And then you're always wondering, you say, is there a leak in my CV or did I really find something? And you make that submission. And this is the exciting part. You're at your computer, you hit submit, you're like, is it real? Is it real? And then, you see your name. And when I first did it in Santander, I jumped from maybe position 80 all the way up to 13. So, okay. and I can list maybe 5 or 6 other competitions where there was a barrier. There was something you had to discover to jump into top 50. And that always feels so good to discover it and then to make that submission and then to see your CV go up and then to jump. Those are really the exciting stories.
I haven't had the chance to experience that yet, but I can sure relate to that. Do you have any rigid approach to competitions now, or do you compete in any in parallel, or do you just stick to one? And what's your approach in general to competitions now?
So I recently did a video workshop and I posted a notebook on sort of a template approach. And, if I had to just give a template, I would say that's my template, which is, one of the most important things is to set up a local validation. The whole goal of a competition is to achieve a high leaderboard score, but you have to have some kind of validation locally to know if your model is getting better. So the very first thing, you set up a very good validation, and then next you want to make your pipeline very fast. So I usually try to convert everything to GPU, and that makes things super, super fast. And then you just run experiments over and over and over. So I would say that's a generic template. However, usually to do very, very well, you got to make a breakthrough. And the breakthrough isn't necessarily randomly trying things. So I would say the breakthrough, and this is sort of my secret sauce, it comes in the EDA. So you have to do a lot of exploratory data analysis. You have to really plot the data. And for me, this, luckily for me, this is my passion, actually. I would say first and foremost, I'm in love with the data, even more than the models and the competitions. When I get a new data set, I hit download and I'm like, download. And I make a few plots and I'm like, wow, this is exciting. And look, wow, that's neat. Look at how this feature, it dips in these months and it rises. So it's very fascinating. So I'm making plots, and that's sort of the secret. You gotta make lots of plots, lots of graphs, look at the correlation between different things, and eventually you just have an intuition. You just say, oh, wow, I see that this data, it's really different in the month of November, or it's really different when I look at just males versus females. Like you see something, and then you say, wait, what if I separate my model? Or what if I give an extra feature to tell my model when it has a male or a female? Like you see something in the plots, and then you either add a feature or you redesign your model, and that's usually where you get the big boost. So that's, I think, my secret is, basically modifying your model or adding a feature based on your intuition gained from studying the data.
So your secret is you really enjoy the process, and you are truly addicted to the process.
I think that's absolutely it. And it's funny you say that because before Kaggle, I did some online. I play a lot of board games, and it's sort of a similar thing because it's sort of an intellectual competition, right? You're in these games, like these Euro strategy games, where you're trying to manage resources, and there's limited resources, and it's this intellectual challenge. And what I realized playing board games is, if my goal is just to win, I never win. If I say I'm just gonna think really hard and do really good, I never win. It's funny. When I say, you know what, forget about winning. I'm just gonna have fun. I'm gonna try out that crazy strategy. I'm gonna see if I can simultaneously do these two things at once, which people can't do, and see if I can, go in between these two players. I'm just gonna have a fun time. When I say that, I always win, or I win a lot. The point is, if your goal is to just sort of have fun and just play around, I do far better. So I try to, use that at Kaggle, and it also, I do better at Kaggle if I'm just doing fun stuff and not just saying, what do I need to do to win? What do I need to do to win? And,
Totally. At what point did you decide to start sharing your kernels? The fun comes across definitely through your kernels. I think you take different challenges with every new kernel. You also, the title is usually a question. You answer it in some format and also open up a discussion, which is an open question to the community. You keep engaging there. At one point, did you decide to do that? Because many people feel uncomfortable doing that, at least during their initial phase.
I see. Yeah, I think I've just done that from the beginning. So, in my history, and maybe I didn't emphasize this, but, when I was getting my PhD, I was also teaching classes. So, I've been a university, professor, lecturer, what have you, teaching classes. So I've been teaching many years. So it's sort of natural that I want to share. It's sort of natural that I want to teach. And then to sort of address your question, additionally, people sometimes send me emails, why do you do this? Or they say, thank you. They say, what motivates you? And I have to say, partly I do like to share. It's so interesting. I just got to share it. And I like helping others. But, there's also an aspect where it really helps me out in the sense that part of my learning process is when I see something new or I have a new idea, I need to think about it. And usually the best way to learn something is to ask yourself, hey, if I was to explain this to another person, how would I do it? Because that forces you to really make sure that you understand it well, and it forces you to simplify it. If someone tells you 20 steps, you don't have time to teach somebody 20 steps. Yeah. You got to think about it and say, hey, wait a second, I could do this in 3 steps. So you think about the idea, you sort of simplify it, you really understand it, and then when it's sort of ready to be explained. So it might not, people might not realize it, but also when I make discussion posts or notebooks, I'm equally helping my own learning process because I had to take the time to organize my thoughts to do it. So, and that's something that I also enjoy very much.
On the flip side, do you feel you're also losing a competitive edge? Because A, it of course takes a lot of time, and B, you're sharing, most of the times you share some interesting insight or some of your kernels take a take.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is what I mentioned earlier. I think it's difficult to, it's sort of, you're right. You do lose an edge. And I think that's why in my first year, I didn't get the competitions Grandmaster. Some people have told me, and they're in discussion posts, they said, hey, if Chris didn't share, Chris would have gotten a gold medal. And that's,
I
that's
completely
true.
Agree.
Thank you. And that's true. I can give you an example. Like it comes to mind, in instant gratification competition, the data was generated using scikit-learn make classification function. And I immediately recognized that because that function had a little bit of a leak. It had a little bit of a signature, like a fingertip, a fingerprint, so to speak. I recognized it immediately. That was the key insight for all the teams to leap. Well, I published it day one. If I just sort of kept that knowledge to myself, and other people did also, then way fewer teams would have been up there. So actually, in that competition, I got gold anyway. But in some other comps, yes. So to answer your questions, they are a little bit at odds, and I guess it sort of depends. If I enter a competition and my goal is to get a high placement, then I'll definitely hold back on the sharing. If not, I'll be a little more liberal. But I have adopted sort of an overall new philosophy where I don't want to share I'm trying to not share too many secrets. I realize it is frustrating, if you've been working hard and you've been uncovering secrets. So I'm trying to change the flavor of my sharing to be more, less, here is the secret of the data, and more, here is how to use this technique, or here's how to use this technique. So I'm trying to do that more too. And that also, it also makes the sharing a little bit less at odds with me also simultaneously competing.
It's at least as a fan exciting to know that you won't be putting a stop to your sharing, at least for a few long while.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said, I sort of told you my motivation. Sharing wasn't about obtaining the medals. It wasn't about getting the Grandmaster. And that's why I'm still doing it. I'm still making notebooks. I'm still making discussions. I received those Grandmasters a year ago. But as I mentioned earlier, because that's not my motivation. So as I mentioned, I have like a threefold motivation. One, I really enjoy it, and that's because A, it helps me out a lot. It's central for my thinking process. Two, I'm so excited. I just want to share it. I want to scream it from the rooftops. That's two. And then three, I like helping people. When someone asks a question in the forums, I'm the kind of person that it's really hard for me to sit by and empathize knowing that person's sort of frustrated and I know the answer. So it's very hard for me not to help people when I can help people.
I think it comes through because you don't just post on the discussion thread. You also engage with almost every single reply. You try to keep answering questions. People always have a few questions, and you're always there to answer any questions. Keep the community engaged. So it definitely comes through.
Thank you.
What advice would you have for newbies who are looking to write kernels? Because again, it's an open question. There are many tangents to it. What would be your advice?
Okay, so I can answer that in two ways. If their goal is to get lots of votes or to get tiers, maybe I would answer it differently. If their goal is just to make very high quality work, I would answer it one way. And I know that those two goals are kind of aligned. So let me first address the high quality. I think, time should be taken for the presentation. So it's not just the idea by itself won't speak by itself. You have to present it. So just some simple tips. Some people will make a notebook and, they'll, for instance, list all the files in a directory and it lists 1,000 files. So I'm reading a notebook and all of a sudden I see 1,000 file list. And then you have to scroll past it. Maybe they can hide that. So, first thing is, after you make a notebook, look at it, scroll down it. Make sure sort of everything that's displayed is helpful. If there's a piece of code that's just kind of, code everybody knows and it's long, there's a little button, you can hide that. Or, if you don't have to output the summary of your model, which is, 1,000 lines long, then just hide that. So I would say, look at the output, hide a lot of things, make sure it presents well, it's simplified. And then, also to help in presentation, make good headers. You can either do a table of contents or just headers, here's section 1 and, section 1, pre-process, section 2. So, even if you don't want to write text, some people don't want to write a whole paragraph. That's fine. Just put a header. It takes 1 second. Section 1, pre-process, no explanation. Section 2, data loader, no explanation. So put the headers. And then also, it's a little harder maybe, but if you can incorporate some pictures, maybe download some photos from the internet. Here's a picture of a graph of the accuracy of these CNNs, or here's a picture of, what it looks to use a classifier and separate the plane. Either make some pictures on your own or download. So maybe I would say those 3 pointers to sort of make the content present well. And I believe that if it presents well, people read it more, you get more votes. And then I know that was kind of long-winded, but maybe 2 more things. If you want to additionally get more votes and attain medals, then I have a few extra tips, which I would say, 1, monitor your notebook. Look at, if someone asks a question, answer the question within a day or 2. So many notebooks, people publish it and the questions go unanswered. When you answer a question, your notebook becomes recent and it goes to the top of the search engine. More people read it, more people vote your notebook up. So that's key. Second of all, when you publish a notebook, I think it's also good for you to join the competition yourself, because if people see you're in the top 10%, 20%, I think they're more likely to kind of read what you have to offer, versus if you publish a notebook, you're not in the competition, or all you did was submitted the sample submission and you're in the bottom 20%. So I would say, compete a little bit. And then maybe my last bit of advice is, every competition requires the standard notebooks. You need EDA, you need the common models, boosted trees, or a neural network. And then also you could show alternative approaches. Hey, here's how to do a support vector machine, or here's how to do some creative EDA using, UMAP or k-means clustering. So I would say, address sort of the basic needs for a competition. And again, those help. So I said a lot, but what the first thing was, make your notebook very presentable, make it organized and clean. And then the second thing was make sure you constantly review your notebook, answer questions. Also it's good to participate in the competition. You want to be on the leaderboard. You want to be active in the discussions. And then lastly, address the common needs. We need EDA, we need basic models. And for discussion posts, we need links to previous solutions. We need links to other. So fill some of the common needs. That's sort of a lot of advice, but people, I didn't mind over speaking because it's the most frequent question I get. So that's sort of my view of the picture.
That's the secret to becoming a grandmaster in any tier that I think you already shared a few times. But the other side of this is people try to abuse the system. They try to spam the comment system. They try to spam people on personal messages. That's another story. What advice would you have for them? They're just chasing maybe the title since it's gamified. Does it annoy you? Do you have any advice for such people?
So it doesn't particularly annoy me. I mean, I know that, yes, I have noticed that. I believe that's sort of the wrong, I believe that's sort of the wrong way to approach it. I really constantly, rarely, if ever, say, please upvote my discussion, please upvote my notebook. I feel, and I also try not to, I mean, I do advertise myself, but then, for instance, if I make a notebook, I might make a similar discussion post where I highlight some of the main points. Maybe I'll make some additional plots. So I do sometimes advertise my work. I think that's kind of different. I know, some people. So, okay, let's see, to address your thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating. You can never stop that. I also host and make my own website, and I have to constantly administer it and view logs, and people will always people always game a system or whatever. So it's inevitable, and it'd be better if people didn't do that. But I sort of understand. They're really eager to achieve medals, but I don't know I really don't know what to say about it. Maybe if they listen to some of my previous tips and they use those and that allows them to get medals, then they can stop doing those other techniques.
Totally. But I think it'll remain, hopefully, the people on the edge who need to learn about this, they might be able to search, which is why this is always a repeat question on the podcast. Coming to another tier of yours, discussions. You love engaging, you discuss a lot. Any favorite memories from discussions that you might have?
Let's see, favorite memories. So I would think that my best discussion. So in the beginning, I competed a lot solo. It's sort of my style. I come from academia. I do a lot of solo research. It's fine. I work at, whatever. I work at whatever hours I want. There's some pros, but and then I would just discuss in the forums. And I think in the forums you can discuss many topics, but you can never get too close to the really, really heart of the problem, like the deepest secrets or the very, very specifics about how you really make the model work. So what I found was I've been teaming up. So I would say my best discussions have actually been being part of a team. And, I think teaming on Kaggle is wonderful. The internet makes it really easy. When you join a team, generally what I find happens is people will create a Slack channel. They'll create a GitHub repository. You'll all talk on the Slack channel. It's nice. You just make comments whenever you can. Maybe two people are on at the same time. Maybe you have a live talk. Maybe you hit the phone call button. You do a little video talk. You talk with somebody. Maybe you post your code to GitHub. They read it. So these have been sort of the most rewarding because, that's when you really get to talk about the absolute cutting edge. Hey, I just implemented this really cool tweak and I incorporated these features and it jumped our CV up. and then someone says, wow, that's awesome. Hey, have you thought about doing this? And they made a few changes and it jumps it more. And a third person comes in and says, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that. Well, I've used that before. What you need to do is you need to put in this third thing. And so you have these moments where it's just, you're just sort of brainstorming, and it's really exciting. And it happens a little bit in the forums, but you understand, you can't let it go unchecked in the forums. You know, you can't show somebody how to achieve, you know, first place leaderboard in the forums. But in your private team, you know, I've been on winning teams where we literally have had a brainstorm session, and the result was we jumped to first place on the leaderboard. You know, you don't get any more exciting discussions in terms of ideas and stuff than that.
It's really an emotional battle, like you said earlier. What advice would you have for people who many people seek teaming up because they maybe are scared to just compete by themselves? You competed, I think, in 62% competitions by yourself. But
Yeah.
what teaming advice would you have for people in general, or what's your strategy?
So my strategy, my advice, let's think. So yeah, so I suspect it's probably a little difficult if you're new on the site, because, you know, you sort of don't have a record to show. So I think it helps by just getting a presence, you know, posting discussions, notebooks, just whatever, just putting yourself out there. And that shows people, you know, how you think. It shows people your work ethic. It shows people a bunch of things. So I think, you know, participate online. I think that's the number one thing. It gives people confidence. And then additionally, I think this takes time, but as you know, as you get better and you have some achievements, that helps. Probably, you know, the number one helpful thing is if you're in a competition, and you should focus on one thing. You know, maybe the competition has, you know, 4 data sets. So maybe you focus on studying just one data set. You study it very, very well. You extract some sort of secret. Maybe you hint at it with a post or a notebook, or maybe you incorporate something about that and it enables your model to jump in the top 50%. So I would say do something unique. You know, have a unique insight about the data, have a unique idea about a model. And a lot of times people see you. And, you know, actually in my first competition, believe it or not, I actually got an email from a grandmaster saying, would you like to join our team? Because, you know, I had posted some very helpful notebooks showing how to use time. You know, before I joined in Microsoft malware competition, people weren't treating it like time series. But the first thing I did was I took the version numbers and I wrote a script. I mean, it wasn't my idea, actually. I read about it in a blog by Deotte, but, you know, no one did it. I heard his idea. I wrote a script. I converted the version numbers into a timestamp. And then each row of the data, I was able to associate a timestamp. And then I converted the data into a time series problem. I made some notebooks and some plots. So this shows people, whoa, Chris, you know, he sees something new. You know, likewise, I might have been in the top 100 or 200 on the leaderboard. That's good. So people contacted me. So I would say, yeah, participate, advertise, do something unique. And then sometimes people contact you, or at least it gives you can be more confident to send out an email and contact somebody.
Or worst case scenario, you become a better communicator and a better teacher of some sorts. So I'll quote a comment from you on the forums. It was regarding that you're about to become a 4X Grandmaster. This is a part of your comment. I plan to participate at Kaggle for many more years, so I'll certainly eventually get it, if not too soon. What's your reason for investing so much time into Kaggle?
So I mean, you know, sort of as I said before, it's a win-win for me. You know, people might see it and say, why is he doing so much for the community? And I am. But what people don't realize is I likewise do an equal amount for me. You know, how have I, you know, learned these ideas so well? It's because of the notebooks I write. It's because of discussion. So I would say my time on Kaggle, you know, not only does it help others, but it's incredibly advancing my knowledge of the field. And that's the thing, you know, I see data science as my future. And Kaggle continually challenges me, and it continually helps me learn and grow. Everything I do yeah, it's helping me. So, I anticipate this is how it'll be for many more years. That's what I'm saying. It's, Kaggle, this is the great thing about them. They keep having new competitions. It's a funny story, getting on a tangent here, but last year I put in a lot of time. I was, one competition ended, I started another one. And, after a few months, I was like, wow, it's a little bit tiring. I was saying to my friends, I'm going to take a month off. I'm going to take a month and I'm going to do no Kaggling. So you'll have more free time in the, the evenings, the weekends, whatnot. And then what does Kaggle do? Kaggle, for the first time ever, launches a GAN competition. It was a generative dogs use GANs to make dogs. And I was like, oh my God, GANs, this is incredible. I had never done GANs. It was so fascinating. So I said, I have to play with this. So, I was going to be taking a break, but instead I'll just download this data set and run the starter notebook. I ran the starter notebook. I was blown away. Literally, this was a magical moment for me. When I watched my computer draw dogs on its own, I felt like I was witnessing a breakthrough in artificial intelligence. I mean, how does a computer know how to draw dogs? So I was sucked in. So for 2 months, I worked on the GAN, and it has made me a far better to make those. I have never made as complicated a neural network as a GAN. You need to make 2 neural networks. You need all custom layers. You have to write all the layers yourself. You can't use any standard loss functions. You have to rewrite all the loss functions yourself. They're so complicated, you can't completely use Keras anymore. You have to start using gradient tape and calculating your own derivatives. I mean, to make a GAN is really involved. But I was driven by my passion to want to see my computer draw dogs. And as a result, my ability to make neural networks, jumped threefold. I immediately used those techniques in the next competition I was in, but it sort of shows, Kaggle keeps doing new creative competitions. They got simulations. They got, GAN, just got always cutting edge things. And I'm like, and then, a lot of breakthroughs in natural language processing. You've got transformers and BERTs. And I just say, wow, I got to try this out for myself and I got to learn. And so as long as there's sort of new things to learn, and I don't really see that stopping, then I'm gonna keep being on there playing.
And we'll get to continue learning from you. That was sort of the end of the Kaggle section of questions for me. But for the next part, I want to discuss about your work. Can you tell us more about your role at NVIDIA and what does it in your life on non-pandemic days look like? Your work day.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm really blessed and I'm really excited to be working with NVIDIA. So, I started working at the beginning of this year, and actually, people say, does Kaggling help you get a job? Well, it did in my case because, people, NVIDIA and some NVIDIA employees saw me through Kaggle. They had suggested my name. They had reached out to me, said I should apply to the job, found my name, and then I had applied. And so really being active on Kaggle helped me. And, this NVIDIA job is sort of it's really my dream job. Because basically, so, I'm on the Rapids team. So we're actually we're advancing the field of data science. So, data science historically has been done mostly on CPU, at least the machine learning. The two most prominent softwares are Pandas and scikit-learn. If you want to do, a basic machine learning model, Canon, logistic regression, a support vector machine, you load your data, Pandas, build scikit-learn. Okay. But what the Rapids team doing is they're actually, reporting all of the data frame, capabilities and analytics and the machine learning, and they're moving it all to GPU. So you're immediately getting a 10 to a 100 times speed up. And this is phenomenal. I mean, it's allowing us to do things that we've never been able to do before. For example, you can now run the KNN model at KNN at large scale. You can have huge data frames with thousands, or even I've had one at millions of rows with thousands of columns. You put the data not in pandas, but you put the data in a QDF data frame on your GPU, and the whole KNN model is computed on the GPU. And I did this, one of my first weeks working there, and it was a 600 times speed up. And what that means is we can now play with this. Before I never did this because it would literally take hours or days, but now we can do this. Likewise, I just posted a notebook recently, which is using TNSE, which is an algorithm which takes a high dimensional data set and it displays it in a low dimensional, say a 2D plane. So if you do this in scikit-learn, it literally takes hours, maybe a day. It's a very computational thing. But Rapids has rewritten the algorithm on GPU. It now takes seconds. So you can do things you can't do for it. So I posted a notebook, which in the melanoma competition, we're trying to wonder, is the test data similar to the training data? Well, hey, take the data, apply TNSE, map it into a low dimensional space and plot it. Is the test data plotted on top of a train data, or is the test data over here? Like, is this group of images the same as this group of images? I couldn't do this before NVIDIA Rapids. So that's sort of my job. My job is we help out develop this software. We work with the teams. A lot of times we test it out. So, we'll use their software, apply it to problems on Kaggle, both on Kaggle and off Kaggle. We'll see how it works. We meet with the teams. We give them feedback. We have opportunities to, it's an open source library, so we can get on GitHub. We have opportunities to update make pull requests and update the code ourselves, or we can make suggestions. And so, yeah, so the team, so the description is sort of everything Rapids, testing it, making suggestions, working with it. And then it also gives me a chance to work with sort of the full GPU stack. We'll also use PyTorch, TensorFlow, which also runs on GPU. Make sure that's running fast. So it's a dream job. I get to learn lots of new things. I get to do things in data science that previously weren't possible. And I'm watching the field. I'm watching the field grow, and I'm watching new things be possible.
Totally. I'll point the audience to my interview with Evan Aldridge, who's also from the Rapids team. We really get into the complete package and all of the packages that are the inside of the repository. How do you, Chris, how do you manage your time? Because you're active across all of these things. You're also working at NVIDIA. What's the secret to time management?
So that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, if you follow my history, I've always done a lot of things. I would say there's sort of two key elements. So one is I always have a flexible schedule. I've been blessed this way. So, my first job was self-employment. So my schedule is super flexible. And then after that, I was in academia. It's also very flexible. You kind of do research when you want, you teach a few classes here and there. And now with NVIDIA, it's work at home. So, the one key element is a flexible schedule. The way that helps you be more productive is I think a human is most productive when, they're doing what they're sort of doing, they're doing what they want when they want to do it. If you wake up in the morning and you have an idea about something, whether it's work related or Kaggle related, it's fresh, you're excited. If you have a flexible schedule, you do it that morning. And so that's sort of the second key thing, which is I have a lot of passion. I'm sure it comes through in this interview if you meet me. And, that passion is a key element because when you're excited about something, you don't tire out. If I'm asked to do something I don't want to do, I'm tired in 10 minutes. When I'm doing data science and I have an idea, I literally can work 12 hours straight. There's some days, and this is almost embarrassing, but there's some days I'm sleeping and I know that it's kind of the morning time. It's still dark. And I crack my eye and I look at the clock and I say, is it late enough for me to wake up yet? And I say, it's like, oh, it's 3 a.m. No, it's too early. I look, it's 4 a.m. Okay, that's reasonable. So I literally jump out of bed at 4 a.m. I'm not exaggerating. Because I went to bed with an idea and I'm super anxious. I'm super excited. And I jump out and I get on my computer at 4 a.m. and I just start coding. And I've coded straight for, I've done a 20-hour, 24-hour session. You're excited. It's funny when you're excited, the time just slips away. And I look at my clock and I say, oh my gosh, I've been here for this many hours. Whoa, I forgot to have breakfast. I forgot to eat. You're just so excited. But as I said, if someone's like, hey, can you submit the end of the year reports and do all these spreadsheets and it's boring. Shoot, after 5 minutes, I'm like, man, I've been here for hours. Is it lunchtime yet? So, one element is when you're really excited, you can focus and work long periods of time and you're more productive. And the second element is when you have a flexible schedule, you can do a task when you're most excited about the task and therefore be most productive. So maybe those two things are the secret.
Okay. So usually I try to end on one broad question, but for you, I prepared a rapid fire round, pun intended. Is it okay if we do a quick rapid fire questions, a set of questions?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. So what would you like? So would you like me to give short answers? Or
yes, it's up to you, but shorter is better. I'll maybe kick it off with your favorite team or your favorite teammate.
Say that again.
Your favorite team that you've been a part of, or your favorite teammate from the past?
So I don't really want to single anybody out. I've worked with a lot of different people, and they've all been, as I said earlier, working with people has actually been more rewarding than sort of working alone. And everybody I've worked with, and I've worked with a variety of people, I've loved the conversations and loved the Slack. It's been wonderful.
Okay. Favorite course that you've taught? I'm not sure if you've taught a few or was it just a single one?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So favorite course. So I generally enjoy, so I generally teach, let's think, favorite. You kind of stumped me. Yeah. So I would say any course which allows me to show real life examples. So I would teach a lecture and then I would say, hey guys, here's how you can apply it to real life. It's funny. I was teaching calculus of all classes, and it was introductory calculus for freshmen at the university. And I actually spent 15 minutes teaching them what a neural network is. Because I said, hey guys, we just learned about the derivative. Do you know that the derivative is exactly what your brain uses for you to learn something? And I drew a little neural network and I said, input data here. And then when you back propagate and you change the weights, you do that by using derivatives. So I guess I enjoy all my courses, but specifically anytime I'm allowed to show some little application, then that's most enjoyable.
Okay. Favorite algorithm?
Favorite algorithm. I think recently, since working at NVIDIA, I really like KNN. The concept is very nice. It's just, how do you classify this guy? Well, how do you classify this data point? Let's just see what it's similar to. It's a very similar idea. And then I haven't been able to use it much before the rapid. So now it's kind of like having a new tool I can use. So I've been pretty passionate about KNN lately.
Okay. I think I know your answer to this one, but your favorite framework?
Yeah, so it's TensorFlow. I know even my coworkers give me a hard time because everybody's converting to PyTorch, but Tensor, yeah, I mean, but that's almost, yeah, but I like TensorFlow. It's not necessarily, I don't have much experience with PyTorch. I'm not saying it's necessarily better, but I know it very well. I can do everything I want to do very quickly. So that's nice. And I guess it is somewhat nice to be able to, maybe specialize in something that others don't, because it allows me to, when I'm meeting with coworkers, it gives me, I can present something new.
Okay. Favorite competition that you've taken part in?
Oh, wow. So, favorite, again, these are difficult questions. I really like all of them. So I would have to qualify favorite. So, favorite that I learned. So, okay. So I compete for 3 reasons: for learning, for collaboration with others, and for competing. So favorite learning competition, I think, was either the GAN, the generative dog GANs, or some of the natural language processing. maybe recently in the tweet sentiment, because when I watch a model draw dogs or read text, it really, I feel like I'm looking in the eyes of almost conscious artificial intelligence. So that's really, really exciting. So that's exciting. Then collaboration, I would say, yeah, all the competitions where I teamed up, wonderful experiences. And then for my favorite competition is probably, it's the gold medals, maybe specifically the fraud comp where me and Constantine took first place. I mean, I say I like to learn, but hey, I can't deny it. There's no better feeling than refreshing. Like the competition just ended. You're refreshing your computer. How did I do? Oh my gosh, I got first place. It's unbelievable, right? So the gold medals are, so for competing, they're fantastic.
I can only imagine. Favorite competition that you didn't take part in?
Oh, interesting question. So there has been some. Let's think. Right, because I've seen some end, and I said, "Wow, that would have been fun if I was able to compete in it." So nothing comes to mind quickly, but I guess what does come to mind is there's some competitions that I entered in the last week. So I literally joined with 1 week. Recently it comes to mind there was this trans neuro competition. I only had 1 week. So I wasn't able to really dive in too much. I just kind of built some simple models. I had a sort of an insightful post process. I did well, but afterwards I said, wow, that was really fascinating. And even now I'm kind of considering going back and putting more time in. I said, wow, I would love to investigate the MRI images. I didn't even use them. I would love to look at the MRIs and incorporate them into my model. So, I would think any comp that I joined in the last week, I just learned how, I wish that I had put more time into it.
Okay. Favorite kernel that you've authored?
Favorite kernel, I'd probably have to jump back to my first big kernel. So, my first two things were Playground Comp, Titanic and MNIST. And so one of my very first, I would say, high voted and successful kernel, I showed how to use a convolutional neural network trained from scratch, no transfer learning, to achieve, which was basically the best score possible without, using the answers in MNIST. And I lay it out. And I would say that I'm most proud of that. A funny story, that's actually before Kaggle had GPU quota.
Okay.
So you can use any number of GPUs you want. So actually I would literally, I did a full grid search. I would actually run 100 GPUs simultaneously, and I did a full grid search. So I spent months on that kernel, investigating it, and then publishing that notebook. So that notebook is the result of thousands and thousands of hours of GPU time and a month of time on my part to just get those hyperparameters, get that architecture. I think it's, in that sense, sort of a lot of blood and sweat went into that one.
Fascinating. Favorite kernel that you have read? So one that you haven't authored, if any comes to mind.
I see. I guess for whatever reason, my mind jumps back to MNIST. I forget the guy's name. Maybe his name was Andy, but he had this really, really cool kernel. And what I loved about it was it didn't help you at all it was all about understanding. And the title of it was something like a journey through a neural network. And what he did was he actually took an MNIST. It was for MNIST competition. He took an MNIST digit and he put it through a multi-layer perceptron. And after every layer, he would project the resulting output with TSNE into its two-dimensional space. And it showed you that when you put a whole bunch of input images, that each layer all of the images, they get separate, they get classified. All the images, which were a cluster of points, all the ones go here, all the twos go here, threes go here. So subsequently, each new layer further helps, move the points into a new space. And it was really, really, really insightful. And I really appreciated, and maybe this is how people feel about me, that he put so much time into just helping somebody else's understanding. It wasn't necessarily for the purpose of a better score or competing. And it really also helped my understanding of understanding, how every subsequent layer of a neural network is actually, it's further taking inputs and further classifying them. And I really like that one. It's something like, a journey through a neural network. And you could probably search for that.
I'll try to find it and have it in the show notes. What would be your favorite spot to surf?
A favorite what?
Spot to windsurf, or I'm not sure if it's just surfing.
Great question. So I guess I haven't been to enough spots to say I have a favorite. So I live in San Diego. So I've windsurfed in the San Diego Bay and the San Diego Ocean. Oh, that's it. You probably haven't heard of that ocean. I windsurfed in the Pacific Ocean, and then also I've windsurfed in Lake Constance in Germany with a friend. So only those three places. But I guess I would just say the San Diego Bay. It's right by my house. It's a surprising thing is it has wind every day. The ocean's cold, the deserts are warm. There's always a wind flowing. So you got wind every day, guaranteed. It's the bay's really interesting. It's not a circle. It's this really meandering shape, so you can explore. So San Diego Bay probably.
Sounds a lot of fun. Your favorite way to unwind from data science or Kaggle?
Great question. And that's super important. It always has been with me. Just I work very, very, very hard. I put in very, very long sessions, but I equally play hard, and you have to. Otherwise, you don't refresh your brain. So for me, it's exercise. I'll actually just hop up from my computer, jump outside, and I'll go for a jog. So I frequently jog this little 2-mile loop by my house. It's up and down the ocean. I go on a lot of bike rides. I play beach volleyball. So my favorite way I would just say is just exercise. And I find that, exercise just it just totally clears my mind, removes all stress, and refreshes me.
Okay. Final question. Your favorite board game or your favorite computer game?
So I don't play many computer games. I play a lot of board games. I used to play a large variety. So my favorite genre is what's called a European strategy game. So it's these games. So a classic game is Agricola or Calis or Puerto Rico. Settlers of Catan, sort of, but there's some dice. My favorite one, I guess, is Agricola. And but I want to speak more about the genre, which is it's about you manage resources. So you have little wooden pieces which represent you've collected wood and clay and stone. And those are sort of resources or a form of money of sorts. And then you use those to build things, whether you build a house or you build, in Agricola, you build a farm or some development. And then you have to build smartly because the things you build will help you produce resources. So it's sort of a microcosm of real life where you have to manage your sort of your wealth. You have to use your wealth to invest it in building things, and you want your things to be productive, and they do that. And then the competition comes in. There's limited resources. On a turn, there might be a pile of wood. If you take it, nobody else can take it. So you also have to know the value of things. And on your turn, you have to make sure you're taking the scarce things from other people. And you also have to see what's valuable. So when you build a factory, you want your factory to produce rare commodities. So it's sort of a microcosm of an economy, of managing, of building. And those are my favorite. And Agricola is the epitome of that. And it's a beautiful, beautiful game. It's a little heavy if you haven't done this before, but it's all little wooden pieces and it's all very intuitive and it feels like you're building. It's fun. But now with Kaggle, I used to do that in my free time, but now, if I have free time, I'm on Kaggle.
But that also sounds very similar to data science and Kaggle, the board game you just described.
In what sense?
You need to manage resources. You need to find interesting rare commodities, rare features. You have limited time. You have some limited resources, limited compute power, depending on the competition.
Wow, yeah, you're absolutely right. Thanks for making that connection. I had to make the connection, but you are right. You're right. To get a competitive edge, you have to you have to sort of find those rare features. And you're right. There's a whole resource management. Oh, that's great.
I think that's also an interesting loop to end the conversation. Before we end it, any best platforms to connect with you? You're also hyperactive on Kaggle. Obviously, any other places you'd like to mention where people can connect with you?
Kaggle is really the best spot. I'm not really that too active on social media, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. I have accounts on some of them, but I don't spend much time. So really, yeah, Kaggle. And as you see, I usually check in, maybe I usually check in probably daily. And as you see, I answer questions. So yeah, if people have questions, ask me a question on a discussion post or a notebook. And I usually reply pretty fast back.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for everything you do for the community, for all of your insights, for Kaggle community, and also for this interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I feel honored, and I had mentioned this earlier, but I think your show is a great service to everybody because, it's helping teach people about data science, and it's also helping people, you interview lots of different people, and it helps introduce these people and let other Kagglers get to know them better.
You too kind, but I love this job, if I may call it that. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to give it a review or feel free to shoot me a message. You can find all of the social media links in the description. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in each week to Chai Time Data Science.